and De Martio, CEO of YBs. A big round of applause to our panel, please.
Okay, hello everyone. I think we've got the after lunch break, so I've requested these gentlemen to not only be insightful, but also humorous so that we can have a great time. So I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Hian, and I used to be an entrepreneur, most famously the Asian Food Channel. And 12 months ago, we decided that we were going to solve the Series A crunch. So we did NSI Ventures. We're proud that after 6 months of operations, we've got 8 investments. We're probably going to deploy about $50 million of capital this year. And we think that these companies will probably soak up another $100 million of capital in the next 12 months. Rough figures, I can't break them out. But specifically, if you look at our website, you'll see we've been doing deals between $3 to $8 million. And one of the things that we've been very excited about is hardware. We've done an investment into hardware. Simplistic, the founders of Rotimatic. The founder sends his apologies, he can't be here. I might want to speak a little bit to our experience. But more importantly, I've got 3 really interesting people here who are right at the forefront of the challenges of what it takes to do hardware. Hardware, as the name says, is hard, right? So, without any further ado, I'll just go down and let them introduce themselves. So, Nick, why don't you kick it off?
Hi, my name is Nick Ramil. I'm a former serial entrepreneur based in mainland China, and most recently I've taken on the role of head of validation at Brink, which is an IoT accelerator, the world's first end-to-end accelerator program.
Hey, hi everyone, I'm Roger. I'm from Pirate 3D. And what we do is we design and manufacture a very easy-to-use consumer 3D printer. You may have heard of us because we had a very successful crowdfunding campaign 2 years ago on Kickstarter, where we raised about $1.5 million US for our product. And right now we are just crazily shipping out our 3D printers around the world.
Hi, I'm Dima, co-founder of YBs. YBs is the world's smart vibrator that brings fantasy to life. The whole idea is that the vibrators will vibrate in sync with the audiobook. When the voice in the audio says, I'm touching it softly, it will vibrate softly. When the guy says, I'm touching it hard, it will vibrate hard. That's YBs.
So that's a full stack approach to hardware.
Yes, it is.
Software and
we do
hardware.
the software, emotional stimulation, and physical stimulation at the same time.
All right, someone give us a round of applause on that one. Okay, so interesting perspective. First question I want to ask you guys, how did you get into hardware? Do you guys have an engineering background? So Nick.
Yeah, no engineering background on my end. I came right after university. The US economy was not in the greatest shape. So product development was taking off in mainland China. And of course, mainland China is where most products are produced presently. So I thought, where better to learn than get my hands dirty in Guangdong province, which is where I was the past 5 years.
Yeah, well, for me, I started out basically because my co-founders wanted to prototype something. And to do it with a prototyping house in China is just so expensive and takes so much time that they thought, hey, you know what, let's do it ourselves. So they did a bit of research, they discovered 3D printing. They wrote me in and say, hey, you know, we know that you like to break apart things in your dorm room. Why don't you join us and build something?
So you're self-taught. You don't have an engineering background.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, okay.
So I think I had the advantage of being completely ignorant about hardware and not knowing that it's kind of hard to do.
Okay.
Or might not have done it.
Okay, excellent. And Niva?
I think it's more like my passion since when I was really young. I used to like tear apart my parents' radio and TV, and I was get beaten up because of that. And then I moved to software. I was trained as software engineer. But I think when I used to be in a long distance relationship, I started thinking like, oh, I think I can use back my skill when I had it when I was really young. And then for me to teach myself, it was really fast because like if you have passion on that, yeah, it's easy.
So that's very interesting because if you look at what, say, hardware was 10 years ago, or maybe even 15 years ago, it's dominated by people with capital, big companies, and then these people have very disciplined engineering background. And yet, what you really have are 3 people who don't have the capital backing, don't necessarily have the formal training, but one guy's an investor, the other guy's got an award-winning 3D printer, and one guy makes a very unique product. And I just want to ask the question, like, do you feel that capital is, people have a misconception that hardware takes a lot of capital. I'll give it to Dima. Like, is it really that expensive to get into hardware?
I think in the past 10 years ago, like you need a lot of capitals in order to produce product, right? Especially like when you want to think about like mass production. But over the 3 to 5 years ago, I think like it is so much easy now, and all the price has coming down a lot, especially if you try to produce your product in China. And having said that, it's still more expensive than software, but it's still manageable. And especially with the crowdfunding, Indiegogo, Kickstarter stuff, like you can just make a prototype like really good, and then try to raise your funding from the crowdfunding, right? Just make sure like you create a real prototype, not like a fake marketing video.
You should 3D print it. Get one of our printers and 3D print out your prototypes.
Yeah, we should last time.
Yeah, I really think that the ability now so I run validation at Brink, and the ability to take a small amount of capital now and have that one perfect prototype or that one functional prototype ready and share it with the world and see if the market's ready for it, see if the market's interested in it, is now easier than ever because of crowdfunding, digital marketing, and just building a validation funnel where you can truly test if your target market audience wants your product at that price
So walk
point.
me through what you call a validation funnel.
Absolutely. So when you start, of course, before you even make a prototype, for example, you can start with a 3D rendering, a 3D image, purchase a landing page, start driving traffic to this landing page, set up an opt-in, go ahead and...
It's quite lean. These are the kind of concepts that people do in software world, right?
Yeah, it's incredibly lean. With every one of the teams we work with at Brink, we make sure that they've validated their product to a point where there are people interested in their product. At that price point, through the funnel, people are having a conversation. The potential customers are excited about the product. Really, it just comes down to doing this all beforehand to make sure that this business does have
So
a future.
there is a method to the madness.
Always a method to the madness.
Okay, excellent. You were saying backstage about some of the capital, and you made a comparison between Fitbit and a software company. Maybe you give us some more on that.
Yeah, it's right. I mean, like recently I saw another company, like they make a comparison. Is it like hardware startup is really expensive? But actually it's not, because like if you look at it, Fitbit just IPO about a few days ago. They only raised 66 million over the course of they started the company, and they have revenue 755 million revenue with profit about like 160 something. So compared to the other one, Box is like a Dropbox for corporate. They raised like 560 million, and yet they're still making loss. Like they lost 100 million something, right?
Okay, so let me get this right. So I'm very excited about it. 66 million, 750 million hardware startup.
Yes.
Like 560 million and only 124 million software startup.
Yeah, and they're making loss.
So and they're making a loss. So let me ask you this question: why? And this maybe it's not there, but why is it that investors don't like hardware? I like hardware, but why? Do you find that raising capital is easy?
Raising capital right now is a little bit still a challenge. I guess because the mindset of the investor, they always think like hardware needs a lot of capital. So I guess if the investor now start to learn from all these successful hardware startups, they realize like, oh, actually it's not that expensive. And yeah, the good thing about one of the challenges with hardware is that how do you scale hardware, right? I mean, if I build an app company, I can always tell my investor like, by 2016, we are going to have 5 million users. I can bullshit my way all the way to 5 million users. But if I'm doing that for hardware, like when I say like, by 2016, we are going to have 1 million unit out there, and people start to do the mathematics, right? If 1 million times, let's say your cost of product is $20, that means like you need 20 millions to produce that product. But having said that, now there's a lot of way that you can scale the hardware if you are willing to work with other factory. So this is the part that we are exploring right now to how do we scale our product from 20,000 units to 2 million units.
Okay, so what you're saying is that the investors are actually worried about the working capital requirement of hardware, and yet you've got other ways of doing it. Let me get Roger to comment on that because you're in the thick of it, right? So just for some of the people out there who haven't been following the Pirate 3D story, after the very successful campaign, now, Roger, you've got to go through the actual pains of delivering the revenues, the processes, the manufacturing, and it hasn't been as easy as expected.
Yeah, absolutely. When we started out, we thought that it's going to be pretty easy. We got a prototype out, that's no problem. So from prototype to manufacturing should be a cinch, right? Not so. I think this is a mistake that a lot of early hardware entrepreneurs make, and I'm sure that we've all done our share of that as well.
So what was the crux of the problem, the first problem that you just went, oh darn it, we're in trouble?
Essentially, there is actually a lot more that you need to do to get a product from a prototype to a actually manufacturable product, something called process engineering, and then you've got quality control, and then lots of extra stuff on top of that. And you can read as many books as you want about, startups. You can read like the Lean Startup and all that, but they'll never tell you how are you going to do, let's say, the financial models for a hardware startup. There are some essential differences between most software startups as well as a hardware startup, and these are things that you probably never learn until you go through the process yourself. With hardware, you've got a lot of extra things to consider. For example, your COGS, when you buy more volumes for your supplies, your materials, you can basically drop the cost down. And if you don't get this, volumes, you're not going to be able to get the cost savings that you require.
Yeah. So really, if you ask me, it looks like you've spent all your time focusing on product market fit. And if you're lucky, you get product market fit. But you spiral into an even bigger hole, which is manufacturing and process engineering. But you never start a company with necessarily those guys in place from day one because you're just trying to get to product market fit, right? So I'm going to ask Nick that because in some ways, when we're talking backstage, that's what a hardware accelerator is all about.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, congratulations on shipping the product. That's the very first thing I said to him backstage because most crowdfunding campaigns, one, aren't successful, but two, the fact that he's able to ship a product that his customers want, that's incredible. So congratulations on that. Speaking from an IoT acceleration standpoint, it's very difficult and important it's very difficult for our teams to understand the importance of manufacturing and making sure they have a sustainable process. So what we make sure that they go through is in our program, they have to get their hands dirty. They have to go into mainland and figure out the difference between a functional prototype, a DFM prototype.
Okay, got it. So very quickly, let's play a little bit of a thought experiment. Someone from the crowd after this comes up and says, I've got a great prototype. I want to join your hardware accelerator, right? What are the immediate sort of 5 top things that you say to him? Have you got this? Have you got this? Have you got this? Have you got this? Have you got this?
First and foremost, where is your prototype made? If it's handmade, is it a functional prototype? How is it? For ours with IoT, you have to have mechanical, electrical, all the wiring sorted out. So it just comes down to, okay, here's your prototype, basic. We have our head of manufacturing pretty much break it to pieces, and he breaks it.
So you have one person who is not on their team just break down the product.
Yeah, our head of manufacturing, who's based in Shenzhen, he's lived and breathed hardware ever since he was a child. So he's able to take something, break down a BOM immediately, a bill of materials, and then really give a rough range of whether his feasibility is right for his price range, target market.
So just of those of you in the crowd, BOM means bill of materials. It means the actual cost of the product. In the hardware world, BOM cost is like the most important thing other than the sale price and your quality, right?
Yeah, well, quality first and foremost, want to be making good products, but with your BOM, that will absolutely affect your retail, your distribution, and of course your e-commerce prices.
Okay, so we've gone through maybe the investor perception, what are the things to look out for. Let's shift a little bit and let's talk about phase 3, right? The path to glory. We know that Razer's worth $1 billion. It's got big revenues, it's got profitability. But to get there, you need to work with something called a contract manufacturer. And these people have a lot of tricks of the trade. I'll throw it right at the end. Have you working with a contract manufacturer? How's been your experience on that?
I mean, we talked to a few contract manufacturers before, but I think for startups, if you want to build your product really fast and you want to learn from them, you shouldn't go to contract manufacturer because they're like kind of a shop like can do everything. You want to go to the factory like have made a similar product before, right? For us, like we are making a like personal massager, vibrator, sex toys. We went to like one of the best sex toys factory in China. So in fact, other than like, I mean, we are really good in terms of like the IP, the technology, right? But we want to learn from them how you make these products perfect.
So how do you protect yourself? Because the other side is like the guy's going to copy my personal device.
I mean, before we go to China, we're always afraid, like, if you go to China, the next 6 months, people will sell the same product, like, what do you do? But apparently, that's not true. In China, people will only copy that product that has been really successful. Because for them to copy your product, they need to make an investment at the same time. So if you're new, you don't have to worry about, like, people's going to copy your product. But if eventually, like, they're going to copy your product, like, yeah, by then, like, you're pretty famous with your product. And then you should have to think about, like, okay, in the past, if you only like pure hardware, yeah, the moment like people copy your product, like there's no hope for you. But right now, on the Internet of Things, connected device, what the value of your product is actually in the services, in the apps, in the community, in the brand, right? It's not just about the hardware.
Okay, so your hardware is just a delivery device for services, which you can then sell, you're back into the software world, right? In some ways. Excellent. Just building up on that, I know I'll ask Roger a separate question, but so find the contract manufacturer that has the most experience making the device that's most similar to you. Don't worry about it being copied. Fine. Let's talk about the actual nitty-gritties. There's a contract. What are the specific terms that you advise your startups to really be careful about when you're negotiating with a contract manufacturer?
We actually have preferred partners for all of our manufacturing through all of our teams. But again, it's integral that for these teams to really thrive and take off on their own, that they understand how manufacturing works. Most importantly, you're going to be looking at payment terms. When you're looking out for these factories, you're going to be looking at their quality control numbers. You're just overall just, it really is a pretty personal connection when you're meeting these factories. If it's similar for you guys, do I like this person? Do we get along? Like, do I like the way he's running his business? That's always been something I judge personally.
So how do? You walk around the guy's factory?
Factory tours, you can go do those any day of the week. And
how do you know you can trust that person? He's going to deliver 100,000 units in 30 days, and it's all going to work, right? It's all going to be perfectly fine.
Well, I've never seen that happen, so I'm not sure how I could see that. But I mean, starting initially, you're always trying to find that perfect fit. It's called the perfect porridge recipe. You don't want that factory that's too big for you. You don't want that one that's too small. You want the one where your order is just about breaching their MOQ, so they're always going to be satisfied, but you're always forward thinking and looking for a manufacturer who you can scale up to.
So you don't want to be the guy with the smallest volume in their build list, because you're going to get the D team.
You always get pushed to the back of the line, and you always get the longest
because you're not
times.
paying the bills.
Exactly, and then once you go too big for the factory, then you're running into quality problems because they're trying to promise you purchase orders they can't fulfill, and then they start putting together shoddy products, and then your end consumers are angry.
How about lead times? Just maybe I know, Roger, I'll give you a second because you've got a very different perspective. How about lead times? How do you deal with lead times?
I think lead times is one of the things like a lot of people's never thought about it. Like I mean, if you want to buy like 10 units, 100 units, like you can get it within a few days. But when you start to order more than 2,000, 5,000, and you'll be surprised like the lead time can take up to 10 weeks. And that's where a lot of Kickstarter project or Indiegogo delayed because like they never factor in like the lead times of 10 weeks to get a component.
And I also want to say it really reflects back onto the founder and the owner of the business. It comes to balancing expectations. If you say you can get a product to your end consumer in 6 months and your lead time is 7, obviously you have to account for that. So I always put on a large buffer onto all my delivery dates just to make sure I can hit it.
Okay, so Roger has a different experience. You don't use a contract manufacturer. You're doing it all in-house, full stack. So talk us through why you did that. Do you feel that's an advantage? Because, contract manufacturers theoretically can scale you to millions of devices.
Yeah, absolutely. There's lots of advantages when it comes to using a contract manufacturer. Initially, we tried to source a contract manufacturer ourselves, but we always found that it costs a lot more to work with a contract manufacturer versus building it in-house. On top of that, they will charge you for things like process engineering and all of that. And we realized that our R&D process actually ties in together with our process manufacturing process very intimately. So, we have engineers who will work the line for a while, then they run back to the computer and then redesign a part and then go back there again. And this allows you to really actually understand your product in a depth that's very, very deep, and ensure that you can constantly iterate and create a much better product than you did. The 3D printers that we are rolling off the line today are, I would say, quite a bit different than the ones that we rolled off 6 months ago, because we have made so many little improvements here and there. They're not noticeable at first, but they really impact how the final device comes off at the end of the day. But I would say that our decision to manufacture in-house is primarily a cost one. We don't really have the volumes yet to go to a contract manufacturer and get 10,000 units rolling off the line every month at a very, very cheap price. At our current volume, it's actually a lot more affordable to do it ourselves versus going to a contract manufacturer.
So there could be a contract manufacturer relationship in your life in the future.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. No, I agree with you that. Just to share my perspective, we've done the investment into Simplistic, and Simplistic, they've got such a great demand for it, and I've just been so surprised at what kind of BOM costs you get if you are ordering between 100 devices and 100,000 devices. And it's almost as if not only has hardware got a fixed cost element to it, it actually has a sort of variable cost element that you get better, you get more leverage as you scale. So there's also a winner-take-all feel to it. And if you need to get there at the end, then that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I kind of feel that that's what the juice is in hardware. And if you can get there, it's a very profitable business. So we're going to turn to a couple of questions. I've looked at some of the questions that we've gotten from the audience. And I'm going to have a very specific one. This one's quite nice. I'll ask Roger that. The question is, how much money did you actually spend on the actual Kickstarter campaign? So I'm going to activate. Boom. All right. It says boom. So how much did you, when you started crowdfunding at Kickstarter, how much money did you put in for the advertisements? And did you do Facebook marketing? Did you support that? As well as so on and so forth?
We had some Facebook marketing, but it was all very, very minimal. I don't think we spent more than 10 to 20K max. That was the budget that's allocated. What's actually used of it was very little. If you think about it, ROI on a crowdfunding campaign is massive. You put in 20K and then you rake back 1.4 million. Yeah, I would definitely recommend it for any early stage hardware or even software startup.
So do you believe that really the success of the campaign was really because the product concept was good? So it just went, right? You didn't really need to push really hard for the install or push really hard for the order campaign.
We also had a little bit of a guerrilla marketing campaign. As you're absolutely right, of course, we had a very good product market fit, and we came in at the right time as well. This is when the 3D printing market was just starting to boom. But on top of that, we also had a very smart media campaign. We reached out to smaller sites that wrote about us and eventually carried up to the bigger sites until we were, talked about on TechCrunch and all of that. Just be smart about your media campaigns, and you can do a lot with very, very little.
Okay, great. How about Vibes? Did you guys do a lot of marketing?
I think during that time we didn't have a lot of budget for marketing. What we did is we contact all the journalists, the media journalists. As long as you spend enough time, like one or 2 months before, you start to email them, this is our product. And a lot of the journalists actually they're really nice. And especially when you're working on hardware, this is something it's new to them, because all this time they always write about apps, and then suddenly this guy is coming with hardware and it's a sex product. And that's
okay, so it's a good news story as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so find the angle, and hardware, it's not just another app, so people are willing to write, so pitch a lot of more websites, you get a lot of coverage.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Nick, or should we try to answer? I want you to answer the next question.
Yeah, real quick to jump onto those 2 points I mean, all my former campaigns that I worked on and consulted on, we didn't have any marketing or PR budget. It all just comes down to the hustle. And as these two guys said, putting your time in, cultivating relationships. It's like anything. If you get an email from someone who you don't know, why are you going to support them? But if you cultivate a relationship, you hit a pinpoint or a pain point in these people's hearts, they're going to respond. But next question. What do we
Okay,
got?
next question. So a bit of a generic question, but I've got a view on that. Has 3 votes, so the age of hardware is back. How long will it last? So Nick, you're the investor. The age of hardware is back.
I believe IoT is the biggest trend right now, and it's only growing stronger. That's why Brink has come together as a company. We really believe in this for the long term, and I don't really see myself doing anything else in the future, in the near, mid, or long-term future, other than driving home this IoT movement.
So I guess the question I'm trying to ask is that, the age of hardware, the word the age of hardware means that it's democratized. Just like how Paul Graham says you don't need permission to start up a company anymore. It sounds like you don't need permission to do a hardware startup anymore. And secondly, you don't need to sell 1 million of these devices and you'll make money. So suddenly you get into a very democratized world where you don't have to be a formally trained engineer. You don't have to have loads of capital behind you. You just need product market fit. They're very cooperative contract manufacturers. The websites like to talk about you guys. I mean, this is the best thing ever since sliced bread, right? I mean, surely we're going to see this go on forever, and we'll never see the age of hardware end, right?
Yeah, I agree. It's not going to end. I mean, what we need to do is like make a smarter device. It's not like just a normal hardware. I think that's the trend. People keep adding a value features into the product. I mean, take a look at the weighing machine, right? In the past, like no one really thinks like weighing machine is valuable or cool. But now because like they can add all these smart capabilities on that, it becomes like very useful. So yeah.
Okay, so let's do a thought. Okay, Roger, why don't you comment on that?
Yeah, actually to add on the age of hardware thing, I think the future may actually exclude contract manufacturers altogether if 3D printing is the way to go. I believe that in the future you may have a much larger proliferation of 3D printers, very advanced devices that you may have in your local post office. And this will just manufacture your devices right at the spot. So there's no need for like a long supply chain bringing a product all the way from China. You can just have a post office down the road that makes your product for you right on the spot. And widespread proliferation of 3D printers also allows you to have a very different sort of hardware economy, where basically if you're a designer, you can just design a product, upload the design to the internet, let people download your design for a small fee, and basically make money off that instead of having to go to China and bother with supply chains and factories and contract manufacturers.
Okay, so let's do another thought experiment, okay? And let's focus on this. Let's actually, the 4 of us, start up a company, smart weighing machine, okay? So let's just do this, right? We have 0 capital. We're just 4 people on the panelists. Smart weighing machine. You're going to have to handle the manufacturing. First things first, product market fit. We need to get the tooling. We do the CAD/CAM designs. Roger, you've got your 3D printer. We can print that. So that works. Chipset. Are there a lot of chipsets now for IoT? I mean,
it's really cheap. I mean, like recently, like they have the smallest computer for like $9, and it's a full computer that you can do a lot of stuff on that.
how about Arduino and all these kind of things? What would you use for this weighing machine?
So weighing machine, I will just use Arduino, right? That's the only hardware device that a lot of people know how to code it. But more importantly, if someone wants to start a hardware startup, make sure one of your co-founder is like electrical guy, right? So because that is really important.
Okay, so we got to
Someone
hire the
passionate about-
electrical guy. You got a good guy? Okay, we'll bring him on board.
I'm the guy.
Okay, you're the guy. So you got the Arduino. We've got the chipsets. So this is very interesting. We've got the chipsets. They're at cost. They're readily available. Who makes them? Intel or?
There's plenty in China. Like
Plenty in China. So you're based in China. We go downstairs, we get it. Okay, done. We got a prototype. Now we go see Nick. So Nick, what are you going to do now? We've got this weighing machine. Phenomenal, right?
Nice looking machine. Good job, guys. What I would do is start testing this product ASAP, seeing if there is that product market fit, seeing the demand, testing the price point, finding out the key markets before I do any sort of crowdfunding to see if anybody's even interested at first, engaging those backers in that community through an autoresponder funnel that I can actively engage frequently, daily. These are my customers. hustling on a regular basis, reaching out to media.
Hang on, that doesn't sound very much like hardware anymore. Sounds like growth hacking.
I'm not starting hardware until I
See,
validate
this is
that
very
I got a
interesting.
product. Yeah, and once it's validated, then I'll move into the hardware space. And if the demand is there, then I'm going to take that functional prototype, go right to Shenzhen, and then get it DFM ready.
So you get a DFM. So talk us through this thing called DFM.
All right, so design for manufacturing prototype. Essentially what that means is instead of making 1 or 10 or 100, you can now crank out on a production line 10 to 20,000.
So someone comes in and says, this design doesn't work because if I'm going to manufacture 100,000, you're going to screw up this way. Let's change the design. Let's try and make it ready for manufacturing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's very important, especially when you're prototyping anything, you have to understand that making one is very different than making 10,000 of them.
Okay, so Nick's got that nailed down. Then we forgot, right? Surely it's full stack. Now that this thing is internet connected, what are we going to do with this weighing machine?
I think we really have to build a really nice app, and then we have to work with like a doctor or whoever like expert in like diet or fitness, right? That's how you add value to this weighing machine. Otherwise, like it just looks like a nice weighing machine.
In-app purchase, $199.
In-app purchase, how
pack,
to lose 5 kg in 1 week.
celebrity endorsement, lose weight. We'll give you pictures of more
A nice
attractive
video
people.
on the marketing for the Kickstarter. That's really important.
Fantastic. And then Roger, now you're the head of marketing. We're going to put it on Kickstarter.
Yeah, pretty much. You put on a Kickstarter campaign, get some sort of viral media around it. Find something controversial maybe. Talk about someone's weight. Kate Moss gained some weight. We know because we used a smart machine on her, whatever. And then, tabloids are carrying it.
Okay,
Suddenly
great.
you're-
Who's going to buy this? Hands up. Who's going to buy up this phenomenal machine? Get round of applause for these wonderful prototypers. So I think that's interesting, right? Because
Let's start a company now.
let's start a company right now, right? We had no permission, right? I'll tell the partners to put in $500,000 right there, right? I'll tell them I'm quitting as well, right?
Seal the deal now.
Seal the deal, right? Right? Okay. Equal shares. So we're raising $1 million. Some of my colleagues there ready to go. It's interesting. So I think that's why I like hardware, because it takes, first of all, if you ask me, it's not hardware anymore. It's full stack, which hardware only plays a very small role. But on the other hand, it doesn't take millions of dollars to make it. So with that, I'd like to thank my panelists. Ladies and gentlemen, give them a round of applause. And I encourage anybody to come and meet us behind, and anyone's got a great idea, I would love to listen to it. Thank you for your time, and this panel is now over.
Firebase has a booth over there, and we are selling our product for 100 Singapore dollar. Thank you.
Nice pitch.
Nice pitch.